Speaking about law enforcement and experience, we have both in that package on our set right now. Joined this morning by former Seattle Police Chief and current drug czar of the nation, Gil Krlikowski.
Thank you so much for being here. Good morning. You're back here to host a roundtable discussion that is on drug control policy, and we want to talk to you more about that in a little bit. But first, I have to bring up a recent quote of yours from a Fresno newspaper. You know, just look up my computer here. It's saying marijuana is dangerous and has no medicinal benefit. As you know, that's created quite an uproar.
It did. We had been hiking in 107-degree weather in the Sierra Nevadas, and when we came down, the question was in reference to smoked marijuana. And as you know, smoked marijuana has not been shown by the FDA to show medicinal value. This is a medical question, and that's where we're going to leave it.
So no more questions on the pot issue then.
Even Francis Young, the DEA's own judge, who took medical testimony for over 2 weeks, made this statement. Marijuana, in its natural form, is one of the safest, therapeutically active substances known to man. Yet, despite this, and the ever-mounting number of real-world patient success stories, cannabis remains listed as a Schedule I narcotic. Under that category, marijuana is classified as having no known medical value.
I have multiple sclerosis.
When we first met Greg, his shaking was so severe that he informed us that he would need a few puffs of marijuana in order to participate in the interview. The difference was night and day.
What do you say to those that say marijuana needs to be tested and regulated and have the high taken out for pharmaceutical companies to consider it a valuable medicine?
That's a pretty, and I only mean this as a measurement, as to how much it is actually a pathetic thing to say. I mean, just look at me. Is it not blatantly obvious that I have just enjoyed however many tokes? I look happy.
Greg has been using marijuana for years and stated to us that he's never experienced any negative effects.
I'm never. I need my marijuana. That's stupid. It takes away my discomfort, let's call it. It does enhance my very being.
Where do you think you'd be if you didn't get to smoke it, like you went through pain?
I would have found a way.
I live in a state that has no medical marijuana protection. I was I'm born with cerebral palsy, which most noticeably manifests itself in a severe stutter. I am a widowed young mother with 4 children. I smoke to be the mother my children deserve, because they're really cool kids.
Now, here's where I keep my cannabis. Keep it refrigerated, it stays fresher. I receive 1 tin of 300 pre-rolled cigarettes, approximately 300 cigarettes, every 25 days from the federal government. What this can means to me is for the next 25 days, I don't have to worry about medicine. that I know that I'll be as well as I possibly can be. The disorders that I suffer from are multiple congenital cartilaginous exostosis and a variant of the syndrome, pseudo-hypoparathyroidism. In lay terms, what it means is bone tumors that grow outwardly from the long bones, such as this, grow outwardly into the muscles and the veins, stretching the muscles and the veins, making it very painful. But more important, any kind of movement can tear the muscle or tear the vein, and I could hemorrhage, and a clot could break off, go to my heart, my brain, my lungs, I'm dead. What the cannabis definitely does is relax the muscles going over these tumors. Thereby, I can move and not have to worry about tearing anything. I'm ready to go to work and I try to make some money for myself and my clients. More important for my clients.
We welcome to Larry King Live, Bob Randall, the first American ever to gain legal access to marijuana because of his glaucoma condition. Why are you allowed to use these, Robert?
I have a disease called glaucoma, and marijuana at this point is the only drug that will help prolong my sight.
You could smoke it now legally, couldn't you?
Sure.
Do it for me.
Okay.
Yes.
This is a first. I want you to know, Larry.
I spent 27 years with Bob Randall, and 25 of those years he was using 10 marijuana cigarettes a day, federally supplied. And I can assure you he was not a stoner. He had a terrific memory. He was extremely articulate. He was highly motivated when it came to, particularly to this issue.
I think the only thing surprising here is that a small group of unelected bureaucrats have so long resisted making marijuana medically available. Essentially, it comes down to almost a theologic argument. They want to pretend that marijuana is simply evil, and I think we have to be more rational than that. We have to realize that marijuana has good and bad uses in people.
Bob was treated on every conventional medication that was available, and it was only through the addition of marijuana that his eye pressure was lowered to within the safe range. Told at 25 that he would be blind by the time he was 30, marijuana made the critical difference, and Bob could see up until the time of his death in 2001.
The war on drugs is the last dying smell from the Nixon administration. This isn't a war, it's a misuse of the word. It's an apparatus of control. You can tell it all, by the way, by the name they give to the person who's in charge of this mad scheme, a czar. But the czar is exactly the right name for this program and for this mentality.
Get smaller.
It's absolutist, it's unquestionable, it's fanatical, and it's corrupt.
What keeps this thing going is the government, especially the federal government and organizations like the Partnership for Drug-Free America, their willingness to spend hundreds of millions, if not billions of dollars, taxpayer dollars oftentimes, on propaganda. Putting out propaganda in every case that's essentially an ounce of truth embedded in a pound of lies and bull and exaggeration.
This absurd continuation of this prohibition is largely a function of ignorance. In 1967, because I was so concerned about this drug marijuana, I decided to do a review of the literature. I was then persuaded by Harvard University Press to do a book. The book came out in 1971, Marijuana Reconsidered. I learned that what was being said about this drug was mythological. You couldn't find the data to really support it. It turns out that marijuana came across as a remarkably non-toxic drug. Cannabis is a plant. Now, in the plant, there are somewhat more than 60 molecules called cannabinoids. THC is the most active. THC stands for tetrahydrocannabinol. People find smoking marijuana very useful for a whole host of symptoms. And if you inhale it, you get the effect within a very short period of time. So you can titrate it. By titrate it, I mean you can take just enough to get rid of your symptoms and stop.
The government hates to admit that they've already acknowledged that marijuana is a medicine. They acknowledged it in the 1970s and 80s when they allowed dozens of Americans to receive a monthly supply of marijuana from the government's marijuana farm at the University of Mississippi. Some of those people are still alive and still obtaining it today, their monthly canister of marijuana.
As you know, smoked marijuana has not been shown by the FDA to show medicinal value. This is a medical question, and that's where we're going to leave it.